Hello.
Hi, hi everyone.
Yeah, maybe we can wait for a few minutes before.
Sure, yes. Let's wait a bit. So I see we have everyone from the panel. That's great. And nice to meet you. I'm Juana. I'm one of the co-organizers.
Yeah, hi, I'm Weija.
So let's see. We have 14 people already. We usually start, so given that we already have 14 people, we could have like an icebreaker, a short intro from the participants, like the people who are asking questions and are interested in what the panel has to say. We could start by everyone can add in the chat maybe where they're from, so we can see the global participation and maybe also their year of study. And at the same time, I'll post the link to the Slido questions in the channel. So the idea is that everyone can ask questions in this link and also vote your favorite question, because we are gonna ask questions in order of the most voted ones. Okay, great. Okay, I see people voting questions. Nice. What do you think, Weija? We could start or should we?
Yeah, maybe I started by a round of self-introduction. Yeah, thanks so much for joining today's session. And this is our first mentorship session at 2025. And today's topic is about how to broadcast your research to a broader audience. And it's our pleasure to have Nathan, Gautam, Neilfar to join us as panelists. Yeah, maybe I can start by a self-introduction. So I'm Weija. I'm a PhD student at the University of Washington, and I'm mainly working on natural language processing with a focus on retrieval augmented language models, pre-training. Yeah, and I'm very happy to join today's session.
Thank you. I can continue. I'm also one of the co-organizers. My name is Juana Ignat. I'm from Romania. I recently started my job as an assistant professor at Santa Clara University. I moved from Michigan. Before I was at the University of Michigan, working with Rada Mihalcea on natural language processing and computer vision. So multimodal work on focusing mostly on making models work well across different demographics. So inclusive, fair models that work well for data outside of Western cultures or English data. Yeah, so that's what I continue focusing on now. And yeah, I also enjoy mentorship, so I really like organizing this. Maybe we can continue with the panel. Let's see, maybe Nilufar, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Nilufar, and thank you guys for having me here, by the way. And sorry, I hope it's not too noisy. I'm a postdoc at University of Washington. Before I did my PhD at UC San Diego and undergrad in Iran, I work on privacy, natural language processing, and related issues with memorization data leakage. And I have actually worked with, I think I've worked with everyone here, uh, depending on how you define working. But I've learned a lot from Nathan and Gautam and Weija, and we've collaborated on different things. So it's a pleasure to be on the panel with them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Maybe next we could have Nathan.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me. to have a distribution of knowing it reasonably well to knowing from the internet of people that are co-panelists and organizers, which is kind of how it goes at this point. But I did my PhD at Berkeley in reinforcement learning, and then kind of got sucked into the whole NLP thing with ChatGPT when I was at Hugging Face, and now I'm at AI2 Allen Institute in Seattle. So I end up hanging out with a lot of UW people also on the call, which is fun. And I think there's I just think a lot about how science is changing in terms of the role that individuals have in order to actually have impact on the world. And it's definitely very hard to figure out right now. So happy to try to share what I'm thinking about with people who are junior and more stressed about these questions, because it's there, you want to establish yourself. It's very natural to be ambitious and trying to figure it out. So I'm sure we'll talk about a lot of different things.
Great, thank you so much. And then we have Gautam.
Hey everyone, thanks for coming here, and also thanks to the organizers for inviting me. My name is Gautam Kamath. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Waterloo and a faculty member in Canada's CFAR AI chair at the Vector Institute. I'm on my way to New York University, where I'll be starting as an assistant professor in the fall. My research is generally in algorithm statistics and machine learning, kind of focusing on things like privacy and robustness. I'm a little bit of an outsider here in the sense that I more often publish at main ML conferences like NeurIPS ICML or theory conferences like StockFox Soda. But it's exciting to be able to engage with the NLP community a little bit here, and I really enjoy these mentorship opportunities. So again, thanks for having me here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's very exciting to have diverse perspectives here from industry, collaborating with academia too. It's really cool. So as I said, I posted the Slido link for everyone who joined a bit later. I posted the Slido link in the chat for questions from the audience. So you can ask any questions and also vote your favorite question, because we're gonna read them in the order of the most voted. And if we have many questions, we could also try to group them on common topics. Okay, so maybe Weijia, do you want to start asking questions?
Yes. I see the most voted question right now is how do you determine if an idea is suitable enough for a main conference like ACL EMNLP? What is the difference between a workshop paper and a conference one?
I want the professors to answer this.
I was going to say I want someone who's actually an NLP person to answer this.
Okay, fine. I'll go.
I mean, it applies in every field. It's the same in AI conferences.
Sure. I'll have some opinions also, but Nilüfer, maybe let's see what you have to say.
Okay. I think first, in terms of determining if an idea is good enough for a conference, I think it's not usually the idea that you determine. It has to be a bit more developed, right? You have to have some results and know what your main takeaway is before you decide the conference. Because a lot of times you have an idea, and then by the time it actually comes to fruition, it's very different from what it was originally. So normally, when you have some results, it's a good time to decide. And I think most of the times, in practice, it ends up being decided by the deadlines and the timeline, and especially now, because all these conferences are merging. Like I remember a few years back, there was a clear line. There was the line wasn't that blurry. If it was more on the NLP side, more maybe deep learning, more applied, you would go with the Star Seal conferences. And then if you had theory or math, you would go with ICML. And then iClear was kind of something that people would do deep learning papers in. So that was how we used to decide. But now I feel in practice, we have something in mind. And then if we miss the deadline, we go for the ML conference, because ML conferences are publishing more NLP papers, and NLP conferences are also open to different things now. So that is one overall thing. And when it comes to workshops versus main papers, I think there the line is still clearer. If you have experiments, a lot of experiments, you've robustly tested everything out, you've been thorough, and you have a main idea, and then you have some side contributions. Usually it will be a paper, like a full paper at a conference. But sometimes you have a cute idea or it's a work in progress and you just want to get some feedback on to know how to develop it better. Then you send it to a workshop. And then there's always the case that maybe you send a paper to a conference many times and you get feedback that, oh, this is not fully cooked out yet, and then you just send it to a workshop later. So really depends on how you're developing the idea and how much you have. But I also want to hear other folks.
I mean, I pretty much agree. I think there's a lot of there's so much overlap now because some workshops accept co-submissions for things that end up being conference papers. I think it's all on the how fleshed out the ideas are. I think if you have a very like a high quality paper is normally very, very information dense, and you could bake your way to an 8-page paper that's not good enough. But it's like if you have the information density, like a bad proxy is just how many experiments and results do you have in it, and that therefore makes the argument more or less robust.
Yeah.
I'll give a slightly different perspective in the sense that I'm, first of all, more of like a algorithm theory, relatively speaking, also more in ML conferences. But I usually focus on like a problem that I want to solve rather than like an idea I want to try. And like, you know, whether an idea works or at solving that problem or not is another question. And so like I usually focus on trying to, you know, discover something interesting with whatever I'm doing. And at the end of it, then you decide maybe where to send it. I think that's the ideal. Often, you know, incentive did essentially lead to focusing maybe more on deadline. But I think in the ideal case, really focusing on doing good work first and then figuring out, you know, what you discovered and where you send it at the end and what the best audience for is the best thing. In terms of the second half of this question, what's the difference between a workshop paper and a conference paper? I guess at least in sort of my communities, and, you know, especially the academic ones, I think often, you know, conference papers are kind of more the currency. I think workshop papers are kind of this work in progress, but like if people engage in the bad practice of paper counting, then often workshop papers don't count. And at least personally, my goal of workshop papers, I send something, you know, kind of when it's done as a conference paper, but like on the way, I want to present it to a more focused audience on the specific topic of the workshop, just to, you know, reach them and, you know, present it at another place.
Great.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
So that's all great point. I just want to add a little bit on top of that. It's just like sometimes I submit the preliminary version of my paper to workshop, and after I get all the experiments done, I will submit to a conference.
Yeah. I also sometimes I see a workshop that's right on point, the same theme as my paper. And then I feel like if I submit it to that workshop, I know that people there are all interested in this topic. So many times I get very useful feedback or a good audience for the paper. Okay, great. A lot of ideas. Let's see. The next question. So this is more on the topic of today's discussion about broadcasting your research. How do you use effectively social platforms like Twitter and LinkedIn to promote your work? Maybe if you have other platforms that you use outside of these common known ones like Twitter and LinkedIn. I know there's Blue Sky now. People are moving there from Twitter. So I'm really curious about that. So yeah, what tools in general you have for promoting your work to a wider audience and also to the people in the field. Who wants to start?
I'll say a thing or two first, and I want to like caveat what I think all of our comments will say is that one, I think everyone's like route to being effective on social media is different. And second, I don't think that like everyone can identify necessarily how they were effective on social media. Like it might be because of reason X, and they instead think it's because of reason Y and tell you reason Y. So I think you should take all of our opinions with a bit of a grain of salt. But at least my opinion on how to use these things, I think it's often worthwhile. Like here's what I think is maybe not the best model: to show up every time you have a preprint or a paper published, post about it, and then disappear until the next time. I think that's sort of like it feels a little bit, you know, purely you're there for self-promotion. And I think it's beneficial more to participate in the community and discussions, like not just completely lurk. I think there's a lot of interesting things going on. I think especially a lot of students feel like really nervous about like maybe speaking up. Oh, who will see it? Will people judge me too much? And I think you have to kind of accept that, yes, you're putting yourself out there, but I find it beneficial in multiple ways in the sense that you're engaging with the community, and I find that personally satisfying. But also, I think there's something about putting your name out there and people recognize you a little bit more. So I think it all kind of plays together.
Yeah, those are great points. Yes, I really like the point about not just promoting your work, but actually engaging outside of that too. Like I like, for example, retweeting, finding papers that are really on my topic and retweeting them. That's also a great way to find papers of interest and building a community. Yes.
I think it's important to talk about just how these platforms work. I think 5 years ago or 8 years ago, the way that ML research was communicated is very different. I think platforms are becoming more siloed, and density of signal is not the priority on how they feed content. So Twitter today is very different than Twitter 7 years ago. And I think that is mostly going to make it harder. At the same time, all of these social networks have an effect where you gain following by taking more shots on goal. You just do more things and you get more followers. It's not really, it's like proxy with the quality of your work, and you have to find your own voice and things like this. But there are very simple underlying things that you cannot avoid. And I think Gautam's advice is that you have to engage to find your community. And I think it's easy to get lost in the search of visibility, where mostly you're trying to build connections and find your voice and kind of learn things. And I think that it's like, it becomes a lot of work, and like right now it is much harder to see the payoff because it's harder to make connections and things like this. But I really think that a lot of finding your voice as a researcher is the undercurrent of sharing your work, because if you're going to progress through to higher levels of visibility, it's because that people like enjoy what you have to say and how you say it. And I think that's kind of very salient and easy to miss when it's like, share the impact of your work. I think a lot of it is more successful if you are a personality around this, which is a double-edged sword, because it will naturally draw you away from your scientific grounding to something that is broader impact. And I don't have the final answer on how to balance them, but that's kind of the scenario by which we all play now. And I think it's like, moving platforms just makes it harder.
One thing that I want to add, and I agree with both Gautam and Nathan, but from another perspective of how to engage with others and then how to consume other people's material from social media, I think matters a lot, because a lot of times it really creates this sense. I see it a lot in students that they get stressed. Oh, this person got more visibility than my paper, and now I see this a lot. And I think it's important to have this inner voice that tells you it's like, this is it's online, when you're like, people in the world don't necessarily value you through this, so it's okay, it comes, it goes, like, you are a full person. So that's one thing. And then in terms of using, I think it is also important to engage with other people. So it's not that you're just posting, you also see other people's posts, and then what events you choose to go to, who you choose to listen to. So I personally benefited a lot, especially during COVID, because that was when I was starting to get into privacy, and I didn't have any privacy advisors. And that's actually how I kind of met Gautam, and I learned so much from him, was through Twitter. And then he was hosting these, I think he was hosting things on, Gather Town, and a lot of events like that I started going to, and I kind of found my voice, and I kind of realized, oh, I really like this community. And at first I wasn't really contributing much. I was just mostly consuming, but then little by little. So I think that's also important, to find what you want to go and put yourself out there, and also engage with others.
Yeah, it's been really great being on the other side of it, seeing Nilüfer grow from like just a starter in the community to be really being a stalwart of the community. Let me sort of add on to what she was saying about the idea that like, sometimes you see another person, oh, their paper on the same topic got like 5 times as many likes and retweets as mine. I just want to remind people that like, there's life outside of Twitter and social media, in the sense that like, speaking personally, I feel like when I post a paper on Twitter, it's just to get the word out there. But like, I know the people who actually would read and engage with my research are not necessarily the people on Twitter in particular. Like, I think maybe there's a little bit different in the theory / like differential privacy world, but like there's a smaller focused community, which is not necessarily the same as the community on Twitter. There's sort of distribution shift between the two. But like really, I would like the people in the community that I care about to read and engage with the work and appreciate it, rather than just like random people on Twitter. That's really who I'm trying to impress and generally work with and contribute to the literature of. And this is especially important to recognize when you're working in like not, just like big, large language models and the most latest, flashiest research, because I think a related topic is that people, especially grad students who started within the last several years, they think like the research worth doing is the thing that people tweet a lot about and we see a lot about on social media. But I think that's I think a risky, that's a dangerous path to go down, in my opinion.
Very good points here. I totally agree with everyone, and I'm really glad you give some great advice, especially for the people who are just joining social media and learning about the papers. It can feel very overwhelming, and it's very easy to compare yourself to others' views or retweets and all that, but that's not everything. Building a community and being part of the events and learning, that's much more important for sure. Let's see, so we keep having voted questions. Yeah, speaking of overwhelming, I see here the next voted question. How can I effectively keep up with ongoing research as it often feels overwhelming?
I think that the correct answer is that you should not, unless you're a senior. I think depending on your seniority and role, the scope of what you need to keep up with changes. I think especially as a junior grad student or junior student, your primary job is developing skills for your long-term career trajectory. And I think it can be fun to keep up, but it often goes way too far. So this is something I've given advice to a lot on people, I think. And if you like, I describe myself kind of as a crazy person that also runs like a blog that is around understanding the latest advancements in AI and stuff like that. But it's like, that's not something that I recommend most people try to do. And it is a wild roller coaster, especially when a student, it's like you're best off by building skills that will serve you for a long time. And scrolling Twitter, I mean, it hurts my brain. Like I don't sign into Twitter at work anymore. So it's like, you really want to not drink from the fire hose all the time.
Yeah, makes sense. I really like this answer. Yeah, like don't keep up with all the ongoing research, because of course it's gonna be overwhelming, especially nowadays. There's so many papers, right? The conferences got bigger and bigger every year. So I don't know, it's really hard to filter. You could focus on some topics. So find your topic of interest and try to learn about that. Yeah, I'm curious if you have other thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with Oana, what she's saying about like really focusing on your topic of interest. Like my specific research areas are generally differential privacy, robustness, like machine learning, statistics, these sorts of things. And that's like that's a specific subfield of the entire fire hose of machine learning research in general. And so like, at least within my specific sub area, I feel like it's okay in terms of keeping up with what's really going on. And I think generally, I think for many researchers, you're really focused not on broad ML research and doing everything. There's a specific subtopic that you generally do your research in, and just realizing that you can ignore, not necessarily ignore, but like, assign a lesser weight to your attention on the things which are further from your research helps you focus a little bit, Again, going back to what I said before, like you don't have to pay attention to whatever the things people are posting about on Twitter. I've seen the stuff about DeepSeek and all this hype and panic, but like I haven't really been following too closely because it's not pertinent to the specific technical details of my current research. So like I haven't gotten too invested in that yet.
Yeah, and to add to that, I personally, especially because I do interdisciplinary research, I kind of have to keep up with a lot. And what I do is for the topics that are closest to me, I follow the people or the papers on Google Scholar and Semantic Scholar. And then whenever, like, instead of it being a push notification, whenever I feel like I have things in my calendar, I have like these recurring things every 2 weeks, I just go and I check those things to see if there's anything new. So I don't let it come to me. I try and go check it myself. And then for keeping up with the RL and the NLP hype, there's some, I follow Nathan closely. So every time I feel I'm behind, I just go, he has a podcast and, the blogs and all of that. And usually it had everything else in it too. So I follow those. And then I also really care about the randomness of like getting out of my bubble and just seeing things that I normally won't see. I really like doing that, even if it's way out of my field. So I also follow some YouTube channels. I follow the Simons Institute. They have great talks by people that it's like theory, but also in practice, they have really good things. So I just every once in a while randomly go watch one of those. I watch Sasha Rush's stuff. So there are just some channels that I try to keep up just to get this kind of random things that I would not normally see. And it is very inspiring too. I see this thing, I'm like, oh, this very theoretical thing could be used this way in my research. So that's another thing that I do. There's this one other thing which there are some Slack bots. So there's one in our UW channels. It's called Paper Ping. I've talked to the people who made it to see if they're going to release it or not. I find it really useful. It finds papers relevant to the papers we have discussed in our Slacks, like in the reading groups. So if there are things like that, that is also good to use. But I don't like getting pinged. I like going and seeking it out myself. It's less overwhelming.
Yeah, these are all great points. I'm also a big fan of Nathan's blog posts to keep up with all the latest NLP research. Yeah, so for me, sometimes when I really focus on one research problem, I would just like not check Twitter for weeks and months to get me really focused on what I'm working on. Because sometimes I feel a little bit anxious to see all the papers related to what I'm working on get out, and I cannot really focus. Yeah, oh, cool. I think the next voted question is how to get the chance to collaborate with renowned scholars in NLP. I think
I was thinking maybe we could because we're getting a lot of questions. We can also combine that with the question maybe. So how to get to collaborate with renowned scholars, but also how to make the most of a conference. Maybe those two are connected there, like sharing your work, finding collaborators, networking. I guess when you attend remotely or in person, any ideas? What are your strategies for that? How to find collaborators and make the most of a conference?
I guess I'll say like, I think the framing of the question feels like a little bit loaded to me. Collaborate with renowned scholars. It seems like the goal here is to go and find a renowned scholar and collaborate with them, which I don't think should be like the primary goal. I think like I feel like I've noticed after, I went from being a grad student to being a faculty, I feel like a lot of people, more people talk to me nowadays, but like sometimes it feels like very unnatural. Like I think sometimes people come just for the sake of like networking, or they feel like there's something they're obligated to do, which feels very unnatural. But like on the other hand, if there's like a genuine connection, then, and you can talk, you want to talk about things actually relevant to their research, and, you feel like there's some engagement, then I think, you can go just talk. I think, people of all ages and reputes are excited about talking about things close to their research interests. I guess my overarching goal is just like try to do it because there's a genuine connection or interest, rather than just for the sake of networking, which I think comes across it's hard to like mask your goal if that's your goal, and it comes across as very unnatural, I think. And yeah.
I agree with everything. That was a great answer. I think that I often say that like people are the foundation of your research, and it's like often actually the most famous people are not the people that are best to work with and going to be most supportive of you. I think there's obviously correlations, and it's like, okay, I end up at AI too, and it's like I think Hannah and Noah, who are my managers, are like actually really, really nice people, and they, like that often becomes a like it can help people become successful, but it's like there's different ways to think about the conference thing. It's like as a junior person, it's overwhelming. You don't know anyone, and it's like, oh my God, like what do I do? And I think that it's like a lot of the quote unquote senior people like want people who have fresh ideas to come and just like actually talk about things with them, and not just like sell them on their work and trying to get internships. It's like I really want somebody who has new ideas to like challenge what I'm thinking about, and just talk about stuff, and we're normal researchers in that regards. And then like going into it with a kind of normal like scientist approach is what will probably build stronger connections. I think I definitely get a lot of people that'll be like, I want to do an internship, and I understand the excitement, but like we're normal.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And maybe to add a point, my background was, I mean, I was at UCSD, and UCSD is high on rankings, but it's not a top school, to be honest. I'm being honest on record. So I had this issue of, I would try and talk to people, and a lot of times people don't really take you seriously, especially again, when I started doing privacy, I was actually in a computer architecture lab. I wasn't even in an NLP lab. So I had this situation where I really had ideas that I wanted to talk to people, and I was junior, and like I had this thing that people, it wasn't necessarily wanting to publish with a person, it was just that I wanted to get support from someone because I had some ideas. And one thing that I learned from that whole experience was that if you genuinely have the interest and an idea and something that you really care about and you're passionate about, and if you go and approach someone with this clear, not agenda, but a clear idea, okay, this is my question, and this is what I need from you, like this is the help I need, like what is your idea in this, like what are your thoughts, then people are more likely to help you. But I see this a lot, that people just go to someone and they're like, oh, I just wanted to talk to you, okay, what do you, it is very strange to everyone involved when it happens like this. So try to craft your ideas. If you really want to talk to someone, like read their work. If you have a genuine interest, craft a clear narrative of what you want to talk to them about it. And a lot of times you'll see that they are also interested in talking. And sometimes it's happened to me that, oh, the person really just doesn't want to talk about this. Then just let it go. I think staying and just trying to convince people that your idea matters is not really a good idea. So that's another thing, is just read up on the work and really try to come up with something that you care about. Because I feel when the passion is in there, it generally goes across, and you're more likely to get people interested.
Yeah, I really like that. It's like making it natural, right? Not go with an agenda or just for an internship. That usually doesn't work. Yeah, if things should, like collaborations should build naturally based on ideas and something genuine. So yeah, I think that's great advice that everyone can use in conference, attending in person or remotely, meeting someone in a networking event. That's great.
Since one of the questions was specifically about remotely, does anyone have thoughts about how to engage well with people in a conference when it's remote?
Send very high quality emails. I honestly think that it's mostly a losing battle. I think that it's like your percent return is just going to be far lower in terms of syncing up into a meaningful conversation. There's a lot more bouncing where people are just like, I don't want to be here, but I'm here, and they're just not going to, like, they're not going to be as open. I think that's just like, it's where the world's at.
Yeah, I tend to be a little bit doomer on that as well, like trying to engage on a virtual conference. I think it's hard. Let me sort of twist this. I'm reading this question as someone who may not have the ability or means to travel to a conference in person. And so like what opportunities are there for people to participate and engage with other community members online? I think like instead, turning to others. I think, sorry, if I want to rank things, like I think the best thing is if you can go to a conference in person, that is very good. But like, and I think perhaps at the bottom of the things, being able to engage with other people is like attending virtually. But in the middle, there's a lot of things, including social media. I think people are happy to engage. There's lots of Slacks and Discords for various different topics, which I find very good in terms of like being able to engage and feel like part of a community. But yeah, I think like Nathan said, like sending very good emails may be a way to engage with people, like, not just something super generic, maybe going back to what we discussed before, like having a good point, like this is specific, like something specific, not just vague.
Yeah, I totally. Oh,
Yeah, and to sorry, I'm
sorry,
so sorry. I'll finish it. Yeah. I think it's just that the burden of effort falls more on the person who is not going, and that is okay in some points. Like if you can't go to the conference, you can either try and really go to a lot of like there's Zoom stuff like this, there's talks, there's webinars, there's things like this still happening, and then try and engage with people. It takes more effort to come up with a really good question, but I think it also goes a long way if someone is giving a talk and you're on Zoom. If you ask a really good question, that also makes people remember you. Or if there are no events, then again, a lot of effort, but you can start organizing your things. And then you can send like 10 cold emails to people who would attract exposure, get audience, and then one of them is bound to. So it's just that it's like you have to sample more from the distribution to get anything good. It's just, but I think you eventually can strike something with someone, because there is going to be one more person who also cares about this as much as you do. And as long as you find them and they're like, they can get more people to come in, you can organize your own thing. So I think it's just, you have to put in more effort, but it is doable.
Yeah, these are all great points. And added on top of that, so Gautam, you mentioned about the Simon Institute event. So this year is a special year for large language models. So sometimes attended some events, and I will, yeah, I found some related questions to ask to a speaker or panelist. I will send a follow-up email with them and to discuss this question with them offline or schedule another meeting. I think this is probably another way to engage with people remotely. Okay, cool.
I also think there's this like there are people who are like to work remotely more. Like there are some people who are more remote than in person. I don't know how to find them because I haven't thought about this a lot, but there might be ways to pick up on it interstitially and like steer your remote efforts towards people. Like AI2 CEO is very obvious. He's like, if you want to meet with me, come to the office. I'm pretty focused in my workplace right now, so I'm saying no to all virtual one-on-ones. It just makes me tired. But like I'm guessing there are people at different stages that are more friendly to being remote, and if come up with strategies for that, and if you figure them out, please let me know, because I'm sure other people would benefit from that.
Hey, great. Very good points. Yeah, interesting ideas about joining remotely. Yeah, I'll think more about it. It's pretty difficult to do this effectively. You have the Zoom fatigue is really real. So you have to do something to get more energy, or I don't know, do something creative to stand out or to engage in a meaningful way. Let's see. So we have a bit of more questions here. Maybe I'll try to group them. Oh, I really like this one about practical applications. So what are some practical ways to get companies and policymakers interested in adopting your project? And I think this is also related to another question. I'm trying to group them because we have a lot, which is great. So like, how do you bridge the gap between research and real world impact?
Okay, I think about this a lot. There's two different phases to your work. I think AI2 has these discussions all the time because we're historically a research lab, and what is perceived, what is realistically impactful right now is a lot of recipes and delivering artifacts, and that's a major shift in the way that AI research is happening and received. So I think that it's really different, just like ways of climbing on results, and I think it's very important to like it's useful to be able to do both as a researcher right now, but I don't think you need to do both. And especially figuring out how to land like models that people actually use is really tricky. So I think that it's like good to be opportunistic on it, but it takes like a much bigger team than you would expect to like polish model cards, make sure your model works in all these various integrations and things like this. And the researcher playbook is like pretty well known. It's just like trying to have some experiments to see if your data set can go viral with DeepSeek being a viral chaos. Like that'll help you get noticed a bit, but it's like they're kind of different trajectories. Like if you want to be a professor only some schools will care about your model going viral on Hugging Face or whatever. But if you want to be an industry, like having models and data sets that people at Frontier Labs pick up and try is like going to get you noticed. I know people that I've collaborated with get noted, like students get contacted from like recruiters at Meta or OpenAI or something. And I'm like, oh no, I'm going to lose my collaborator. But this is because they have models and data sets that people notice. I think like Molmo is a perfect example at AI2, which is like they were OpenAI was bugging AI2 to get them the data. It's just so funny. So like there are a lot of different levels to it, but it's really hard to land artifacts and just kind of, you should do the research because that's what you're good at. I don't know. And so maybe it's a biased answer. Somebody should push back on my ranting.
I think I totally agree on this point because like from my experience, I have some projects at Meta because of the company policy. I cannot really open source the models, the artifacts, and data. And I found this kind of papers don't really get a lot of attention. But for other projects at UW, I open source everything, and I found like a lot of people build up on my work, and it have better reach in the community.
I am personally more on the side of my work is not necessarily so easy to adopt all the time because it's different. Like it's not like I'm releasing models or something. And I think it is really a matter of just finding your match quality. Like it's not necessarily that everyone should be contacted or like go and work and like get their work adopted. It really depends on what makes you happy and excited, and then how you choose to spend your time to maximize that. And if you want to go to academia, it is totally fine if you don't have viral. And well, I'm seeing this because I'm on the academic market. Like you're going to see so many different people, and different people care about very different things. Like there's going to be some people who really care about maybe how many papers you have. Some people are going to care about the impact. Some people will care about the data sets that you release. And then it's all it takes is to get one of those people to really like your work, and the other ones to just not hate it and veto you out. So it depends. But then if you really want to go to industry, then you really have to worry more about impact. And then you should probably, and I think another good thing is that with open source communities, you can contribute to them even if you're independent, and you can just build off on it. I see this happen, although I'm far from it, but I see there's a lot of open source communities. I personally started with OpenMind, which Andrew Trask runs, and I worked with him on, and I think it was very admirable. Like they had great research engineering and research scientist volunteer kind of work going on, which was really nice. But yeah, so just depends. You just have to find your match. I think that's the main thing, as opposed to trying to become something that you're not.
Yeah, I linked a tweet which is relevant to my answer, which is not very helpful, but it's just sometimes you have to get lucky. Really being in the right place at the right time and doing what research you think is cool. Sometimes it has some relevance. So like I linked this tweet about like an interesting trick to sample from a probability distribution with e to the minus x. And I tweeted this. My friends Thomas Steinkin, Clement Canon messaged me about it and can we use this for sampling from a distribution known as the discrete Gaussian? And then a few months later, someone from the US Census Bureau called us up and like asked us some questions because they were using it in the 2020 US Census. So like literally just sometimes these things just happen by pure luck, and forcing it, at least it's not my style. Just focusing on good research can sometimes lead to these outcomes, but again, it takes a good dose of luck.
Getting lucky is partially being prepared and trying a lot of times. I think that's how my career has gone in the last 3 years, and I'm watching all of this happen on warp speed, which is like I did what I'm now doing to be very successful for 2 or 3 years with like no growth. I like went from like 0 to 600 subscribers in like 3 years of writing a blog, and then it's like I changed literally nothing, and then it's like exponential, and it's like you don't know when those points will come, and it just kind of takes a kind of process mindset and like finding what motivates you. I think the voice and motivation makes it much more sustainable. Because I just think that like open language models and open science is very important to the world right now. And it's like, okay, like there's a lot of ways for me to do that, but that might not be what motivates you. And you just have to kind of keep chipping away.
Yeah, those are all great points. And I'm also a big advocate for open source your code, your models, data. Because you never know, maybe not right away, but in a few years or so, you'd never know who's going to use the resources you're sharing, and they're going to make an impact. So it's all other people can build on your work. That's the beauty of research, and you never know who's going to use it. And yeah, that's also, you have to be responsible about it. And yeah, there's a lot of ethical approaches, and data sheets and all these model cards you mentioned at Hugging Face there. Yeah, they do a great job there. So yeah, I really like the answers. Let's see, we have a few, 15 minutes left, something like that. So I'll try to make sure we get to all the questions. Let's see. So we have something about the reviews. Interesting. Another switching topics a bit. What incentives could the ACL committee provide to reward genuine reviewers, considering the rampant prevalence of GPT generating reviews? And that's, I think, it's something we all confront with when we submit papers and we get reviews that really look LLM generated. So I'm really curious what you think about that, and if there's a solution to that.
I have no answer. I think it's actually not just an AI field problem. It's like, it's reshaping all of how science is done. And I think that you have to be kind to yourself and other people and just like take, like, be water, let it wash over you. It's like, it happens. Your best papers will get rejected. Your worst papers will get accepted on all AI written reviews.
To talk about incentives, I'm just going to suggest, like, kind of out there ideas. I think like this is a pet project idea of mine, which I think other people suggest as well. I'm not the first one, but like the idea of like a token system, in the sense that to submit a paper, you have to have some tokens from the authors, and if you do reviews, then you get tokens, but only if you do like good quality reviews, which would be judged by like an area chair or something. This could maybe incentivize people to do better and more thought out reviews overall, but someone has to actually implement such a system, which seems like a lot of friction in the way.
Yeah, I totally agree. And maybe we can, the conference can also give more awards for reviewers who did good jobs and like outstanding reviewers. So you create more incentives for people to write good reviews.
My cynical counterpoint to both your thing that you said and mine, is the idea that like this requires more effort from the area chairs. And my hot take is I feel like area chairs are like the weakest link in the review process, even though reviewers, I think, get the most hate. But area chairs, I think, could do more work, and they don't necessarily in general, I think.
I think for junior people, it's like not something you should spend a lot of your emotional energy on. It's like, it sucks. Like, what else are you gonna do? You have to be kind to the meta reviewer and the area chair, and sometimes they'll bail you out and sometimes they won't.
Yeah, I think everyone here has probably had to go both ways in terms of getting bailed out.
Yeah, I remember I had a review that really looked LLM generated, and I wrote to the area chair, but of course they said they cannot prove it, right? We don't have systems that 100% accurately prove if something is generated or human written. So right now we cannot do much about it. Hopefully we'll have research that proves this, but who knows, so if we get there. Yeah, I agree. We could do more in the community, and especially in the NLP field, given that this is text data, maybe we could have something in place. It's interesting because we do so much cool research and cutting edge, but then we have this block, this bottleneck in the reviewing system that's very I don't know what to make of it. Yeah, exactly the opposite of progress. So it's very interesting. Yeah, but I think it's good to have these discussions and raise these problems as a community. Let's see. Okay, we have more questions. How do people, yeah, this one. How do people usually initiate research discussions when in a conference? It's a bit related to what we discussed before, but I wonder if you have other strategies, maybe how to initiate, especially for young beginner researchers. I know I still get nervous when I want to initiate a conversation, approach someone. Yeah, especially as an introvert, I feel like I have to have some strategies that go outside of my comfort zone. So I'm really curious how you go about this.
I think that is just hard. I was so overwhelmed the first time I went to a NeurIPS conference. I was like, what the heck is going on? I don't know what to do. I'm not that social, which is why it's nice when people now come up to me. I'm like, okay, I can now self-regulate. I think it's you do you and do as much. Like, not everyone can do a ton of it. And I think it's good to do research and figure out who's going to be there, who are the people you would be most excited to talk to, figure out workshops. I think workshops are more low key, where it's easier to approach people. I think it's back to this thing. It's like the density of people that are interested in the same things as you is way higher, and the kind of random bumping into people is so much better than if you're at like a keynote talk where it's just so many people. It's like the smaller the group, the easier it normally is. And it's going to be more people, like more students at workshops and stuff too.
Yeah, to add to this, sometimes if I really want to meet someone, if you go on Twitter and search them, they say if you're like, oh, I'm going to be at this mentoring table at this event, or I'm going to this thing, and then you can try and find them there. And yeah, I really agree that like panels, mentoring tables, all of those things that happen at workshops are much better. If you really have a fully baked idea, you can always try emailing them and setting up a meeting. I think it is not a good idea if you run into someone at a poster or just when you're walking and then start pitching them a research idea or asking, because people are usually in a rush at a con. They're always going somewhere. They're not. So it would just, even if they really want to talk to you, it's not a good time. So I think it's better to just preface it somehow or send an email. But yeah.
Yeah, I like what Nilufar said there. Like, oh, sorry, I could repeat what I said earlier about like, go and talk with someone with a purpose. But like, I want to play it, like riff off what you were saying. I think the time at which you talk to them is a good thing as well. For example, if somebody is really in a conversation with like 3 other people, or maybe they're having a meal and look like they want to be left alone, that might not be the best time to chat with them. Maybe at a poster, yeah, if it's a really busy poster, then like that might not be a good time, but it could be a good time to like say like, hey, I read this paper of yours in great depth. I have some questions that I think we maybe take offline, and it's specifically a research problem which I think is related. Would you have like say like 15 minutes to grab a coffee at some time, and like maybe you can schedule a meeting for later? That could be a strategy. But yeah, I don't have a bulletproof guide on how to do it, but like be cognizant that not every time is equal to try to talk to someone. Another thing I'd suggest, sort of more on the meta, like how to approach someone, is I think go off of connections you already know. For example, like when I go with my students to a conference, I try to tell them, like, if you want to meet anyone, like, ask me to introduce you to them, especially these people who work on a related field, or like maybe even I pick out people like, oh, I really want to introduce you to this person because I think they're a good person who does work in this field, and I think you'd have a lot to chat about. They wrote this paper, which we read some time ago. So I think like the takeaway there, from the student's perspective, is like, try to rely upon the people you already know, whether your mentors or your advisor or whoever else you already know in your community, and kind of things grow out of there.
One thing to add, I just remember, this is both good and bad, but at the lunchtimes are most important. You want to stand by the gates. That's where people meet. And then if you know one person who's going out with people you want to talk to, you can just attack. But again, it is very like social cues really matter here. If these people want to go alone, it's actually, they will like you better if you leave them alone. So read the room and don't go with them if it feels like a pressure. But yeah, but if not, and it's okay, and you know a friend, just try and tag along and go and have lunch with a bunch of people. So yeah.
Oh gosh, one time I was at Simon's and like there were two people who went and had a research meeting with lunch, and I tagged along. It was the most awkward experience of my life. They were just like talking about a technical problem. I had no idea what was going on. But you know, that's sort of the exception rather than the rule. Don't let that scare you, in the sense that generally at a conference, people are hyper social and generally happy to meet new people, as long, like, yeah, again, read the room. And as Nathan comments, I know that, you know, getting into a PhD program in computer science is not necessary. There's no interview where they test, you know, your social skills and how to do it in social cues, but like, you know, try your best, and you're probably not the most awkward person in any group, you know, at a CS conference.
Yeah, adding on that, like I feel like the workshops is usually a better place to meet new people compared to conference. Because as an introvert, like in the conference, I saw so many people, I don't have courage to walk up and talk to people. But in the workshop, especially after speakers giving a talk, I will just go up there and ask questions, and then we can start to discuss like the related research questions, and I maybe pitch the ideas to them. Yeah, I think maybe smaller group, or like the events with fewer people will be better for connecting with new people. Oh, thanks, Neil, for sending the videos about the social cues.
Yeah, no, this is one thing that Yejin really taught me. It's like a lot of times it's okay to practice these things that are natural, that are normal for maybe a lot of people. Especially, I didn't grow up in a cult like in America, so there's things that background wise are different for me. So I realize that this could also be a science, and you could actually practice it even if it's not natural, and then it becomes natural. So I look for these types of things. This is a bit too pop sciencey, but I like it.
Great, I really appreciate that. The resources in the chat. Yeah, especially as computer scientists, or working in this field, we're not expected to socialize. So I feel like we're learning on the go through experience. Okay, great. So, also, mentorship events. We sometimes have the ACL mentorship in person at certain conferences. Like we're gonna have it at NACL. And that's what we're trying to do, to have junior researchers come to our events, and then they get to socialize, they get to talk in person with people from the panel, and we go to lunch together so we can continue conversations, form connections, maybe research collaborations. Yeah, so try to look for those birds of a feather events, mentorship events. Those are a bit less scary, and you can have people. I think you can connect with people easier there. Okay, so we're actually on time. We had many questions, and I think we had a lovely session with a lot of advice, and we went through many topics. So I really appreciate all of you sharing from your experience, sharing advice with everyone, and especially the junior researchers. I hope it's not so overwhelming anymore, or you got the feeling that we all go through this. It's very normal. Yeah, so thank you so much, everyone. And Weija, you want to also share some words?
Yes, thanks everyone for joining. These are all great advice. Yeah, and I guess we will have like a monthly mentorship session over Zoom, and have in-person mentorship session in NAGO, and probably in some other NLP and ML conferences. We'll post it in our Slack channel, and also on our Twitter account and website.
Yes, thank you so much. Also, this meeting is recorded, and it's going to be on YouTube in a week or two from now. So we're going to share that on Twitter, so we have even more outreach as the topic of today. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, everyone. Good
Thanks,
time.
everyone. Take care. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.